6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
How about we do it again?
6, 7, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think I fallen.
Okay, let's try one more
I
time.
definitely
Ready?
I can move you. Making review. Making review.
Say 6,
6,
5.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to the 211th episode of Rank and Review. This is your host and random Canadian Larry Parsons, and we have the very welcome return of Scott Lehman this episode. He's going to help me discuss 6 slasher movies, and it's kind of second-tier slasher movies. The last time Scott and I discussed these ones, we were talking about the very top of the mountain. This one is more for off-the-beaten-path travelers, people who like the slasher genre. Here's some selections to consider. My guess is there may be feedback to this, so if you have feedback, you can send that to ranknreview@gmail.com. That's ranknreview@gmail.com. The website is ranknreview.ca, so you can check out all of the other episodes there and the individual reviews and whatnot. So do that if you're in the mood. Also, if you're wanting to put something else in your ears, since Rank and Review only drops every other Wednesday, you should check out the Shelf Shedding Movie Show, and you should check out the Terror Table podcast. And as always, you should go into Rank and Review knowing that for the 6 movies under discussion, we're going to have some spoilers, and that there's going to probably be some not so great language, some coarse language, usually from me in particular. Hope you're in for a fun episode, because Scott always brings his top game, and we're playing right in our wheelhouse. Welcome to Rank and Review 211. Mr. Scott Lehman returns, and it's always a special occasion to have Mr. Scott Lehman on Rank and Review, but this episode is taking us back to the very first Rank and Review that you and I did, which was Slasher Cinema, A History. Now, none of these movies necessarily would be essential slasher cinema necessarily, that maybe that if you're a fan of the genre, you absolutely have to check these ones out. This is a list of a bunch of, another slasher movies,
Fair to say, yeah, these aren't the cream of the crop ones that pop in your head first, right?
In a lot of ways, when people are talking dismissively about horror movies, they're talking about movies like these, that are just, like paint by numbers. You get a group of people, they go to a place, they get whittled down to 1 or 2 survivors. Rinse, repeat. It's a formula. Throw in some titties if you want to get a little extra points, but there's not a lot of, I guess, range within the genre, at least as far as people outside of it seem to think. But in spite of this, you and I never seem to tire of watching slasher movies. So
I will defend those. I mean, many different types of movies have a formula, not just the slashers. So
it's true. I've said it before when people talk about that, like rom-com, every romantic comedy in the world. Once you've seen one, you've kind of seen them all, but they don't tend to get beaten up on that. But I wanted to ask you, because you know your shit when you're talking about slasher movies, what's the difference between a great slasher movie and a terrible one? And why is it that we can voraciously watch either end of the spectrum with big dumb smiles on our face?
I want to be entertained. That's my key. If I just want to be entertained. I'm not going into a slasher movie expecting to be moved or really to think too much. I just want to. Usually, I guess there's the ones that might be a little bit fun. You might have some fun with, even side with the killer sometimes, and just watch the variety of unique kills. Some of them you might watch that are a bit grittier and actually feel a little bit disturbed by. So there's a few different types. I'm not sure what makes it a good versus bad slasher film. Maybe it just goes down to entertainment. I'm not going to judge a movie on its budget.
Right.
Because if you're going to say, well, this movie's better because it had more money behind it, no, I'm going to give every movie an equal chance. Some of them you may have to give it a bit. You don't want to have to fight it too much, but yeah, I want to have an idea. I want to have some gore. I want to have some kills and something interesting. If there's nothing interesting and it's just just another movie about a killer in a house, then yeah, we've seen that 100 times. But what's your twist? What else are you going to give me?
There's something to be said about knowing what you're getting too sometimes. Like, yeah, sometimes I want to sit down and watch a movie that's really going to challenge me or blow my mind or like teach me something. And other times I want to watch Wrong Turn, here's something where I know exactly what I'm going to get. It's not necessarily going to challenge me. It's going to work within a certain box of creativity. But what can they do within that box to distinguish themselves? If you play within those rules well, then I will actually celebrate you quite a bit. But alternatively, sometimes even when you fail spectacularly, there is something a little bit interesting and kind of enjoyable. Like, there is something hilarious about a terrible performance in the middle of like a horror movie. Like someone who's really, really trying to be earnest, but just it's not coming across at all.
Yeah.
Sort of turns around and becomes weirdly hilarious and entertaining to me. Now, it's not good necessarily to laugh at a movie, but for me, a bad rom-com is so much harder to watch. There's something really insufferable about watching someone try to be funny and fail. And there's something hilarious to me about watching someone try to be intense or try to be scared and fail. So for me, even sometimes when they lose, they win.
We spent 2 episodes last year talking about some of those movies that were maybe not very good, but man, we had fun watching them. And I think one of these today might fall in that category for me. But
not enough credit is given to fun. To sort of change the subject, I just saw the new Jurassic World movie, which has been getting terrible reviews. Is it an amazing movie? No. Is it fun? Yeah.
I had a great time. I watched that in the theater with my daughter, and in 3D, big sound. I had a great time.
Yeah.
And,
did it make sense? No, not really. But it was a big spectacle. And we knew what we were going to get. We were going to get dinosaurs eating people, and we were going to get Jeff Goldblum throwing out some one-liners. And, we got our money's worth. Is it amazing? No. And this is the perspective that I kind of take into, particularly slashers, because, like I said, they are so formula. Yes, I know what I'm going to get, but do it well, and I will love you forever. This is just my genre.
Yeah, I think one thing about those movies as well is give me something memorable, because there's so many of them. I want to have something that I remember that movie, because I'll watch many of them where I have to try and think. You'll bring up a title, or someone else will, and say, "Have you ever seen Killer in the Woods?" or whatever title, and I'd have to think. So I don't know. I think I've seen it. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But give me something that has something memorable, and say, "Oh yeah, that's that movie with this and that in it," and then it all comes back.
Oh, that's the guy where the guy juggles the decapitated heads. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. Oh, that's the movie where the guy got stabbed with a shish kebab. Yeah, I know that one.
For sure. I think we got, even though it's all very sort of mid-tier, there's some range to the movies that we have within here in both their budget and sort of where they're coming from in the spectrum of things. We have a remake. We have a couple of like pure 80s, like right at the beginning of the slasher sort of boom. And then, of course, we have some direct-to-video sort of early 2000 schlock, of which there was almost too many. Like, you can't keep up with them and maybe shouldn't. So Is there anything you would like to say by way of introduction before I list these movies off and we start talking slasher movies once again?
I'm always happy to talk slasher movies with you. It's a fun treat for me, and yeah, it's kind of funny because these aren't Friday the 13th. They're Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween. These are other slashers that you may have seen.
Yes.
And yeah, definitely not as celebrated. None of these would be the first ones that would pop into your mind, but it was an interesting 6 to watch.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I don't have a subtitle other than slasher cinema, but like none of this, I guess, what I say is essential unless you love slasher movies. But I'm not going to necessarily say that they're all terrible either. So,
Nope.
We're going to talk about the remake of Black Christmas. There is actually, I guess, 2 of them now, but this was the Glenn Morgan one. I want to say from 2006.
That's right.
I hope we watched.
I was hoping I watched the right one for
yes.
this. Yeah.
Black Xmas, I guess. The an old Tobe Hooper film called The Funhouse, I believe from 1980. Happy Birthday to Me, another slasher movie. This one Canadian made from 1981. Urban Legend. I want to say that's in the late 90s, but it might actually be 2000. Yeah, is it? It feels super 90s.
I want to say 96, 98, that area.
Yeah. Urban Legends, a bunch of killings happening based on famous urban legends, shocker. The direct-to-video Wrong Turn 3, Left 4 Dead, and I guess, kind of cult. There's a little bit of a cult crowd forming around it, I guess, these days. The Midnight Movie, about a bunch of people who love slasher movies who go to see a screening of one, and things don't go well for them. Those are the 6 slasher movies that we're going to be talking about. Thank you so much for being here, Scott.
Happy to. Let's get into it.
Boom.
Someone's having a party for the top 10, the senior class snobs. Before they get to celebrate, 6 of them will die in the most bizarre ways you'll ever see.
Virginia, don't go away. Come over here, Virginia.
It is up to you to determine whether you wish to subject yourself to fear, terror, and shock. Because of the bizarre nature of this birthday party, pray you're not invited.
All right, Happy Birthday to Me. This is a Canucksploitation film from 1981, directed by J. Lee Thompson, which is not a name that everyone will jump and know, but he did direct the original Cape Fear. He did direct a movie called The Guns of Navarone, which was pretty popular for its time, and he was, by all intents and purposes, a pretty legitimate director. And it wasn't like they hired him, like, paid him to do it, and he was like just slumming it for hire. He actually was kind of excited by the idea of a horror movie. Halloween had just happened recently. Horror movies were hot, and there was a whole bunch of these movies being made in Canada, and he wanted to add his name to the list. I like that because there's a lot of times where you find directors who are like holding their nose a little bit, like, yeah, I'll do this slasher movie because it'll make money, and then I can do the next project that I really want to do. This guy had done lots of projects, but he'd never done a slasher movie, and he wanted to do it. I think, it's got a lot of things that you'll notice about a lot of slasher movies if you watch them. They'll try and have like they can't afford a lot of A celebrities a lot of times, so like they'll take a B or C tier celebrity, usually from television, and they'll cast them in a movie so they can play against type. You're used to seeing so-and-so on a sitcom, but now here they are being chased by a knife. Steve Guttenberg is now a serial killer. In this case, Melissa Joan Hart, who's most famous for Little House on the Prairie, is in the center of this slasher movie. It's set at this sort of rich, snobby academy, and this girl finds her friend group starts to shrink very rapidly. There's a real strange thing about the movie because it feels so 80s, it feels so of the era of slasher movies that I can't not love it. But it's so strange, and the way the story is told is so bizarre that
Yeah.
you can't really fully endorse it either. There's a sequence early in the movie where the kids jump over a drawbridge in a car, and the main character is freaking out and traumatized and way overreacting to the situation. And about a half an hour later, we are explained in the movie why that is. But we had no understanding of it when it happened. And there's lots of things like that in the movie. It's like the movie wants you to watch it twice, so the second time more of it makes sense. But the catch is, I think even watching it twice, it doesn't all make sense at all. Where it delivers... Where it delivers is in the aesthetic of the 80s slasher, and, particularly in the third act, the sort of slash and dash, climax of the movie. That's where it really works. But mainly, the movie is just very strange. And I enjoyed it for that, mainly.
Yeah, I agree. There is some strangeness to it. One thing I really wanted to point out is it kind of feels like a Canadian giallo film.
Yeah, very much.
All the way down to the black gloves and the hidden killer. You always would see that in those type of films. Just
Who
the
did
hands,
it?
and they always wear black gloves.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't see, and it switches after we start seeing what we believe is the person committing the murders. But for a long time, it's a mysterious figure with black gloves, and it really has that weird feeling of the old giallo films, but with a Canadian feeling to it. I don't know what that means, but it just kind of looked Canadian.
Yeah, it doesn't have the obnoxious score or the bad dubbing or the turned up color values, but the feel of the story is very giallo. And in the deliberate pacing of it, especially, is very reminiscent of early giallo films. I think, to me, this is one of the things that hurts the movie too. It's almost 2 hours long. And I think for me, a slasher movie like this, there's a sweet spot, 90 to 100 minutes maximum. But I think closer to 90 typically will do your job. I think you'll find a lot of the movies in this collection are less than 90 minutes. You'll notice get in, get out, do the job. And to be fair, it's 1981. It hasn't fully defined itself yet as far as what a slasher movie is. I think that this is sort of somewhere between a slasher movie, a thriller, and, like you say, a giallo. There's a lot of who is it? Who's the bad guy? And a lot of shade is thrown on specific characters, so we don't know who is what. But
one thing that would be missing from that would be the sex, though.
Yeah, it is a pretty clean movie that way.
Yeah, but what I found when the violence happens, I found it kind of surprising, just the level, because there were some pretty impressive actual kills in this film, and enjoyable in that way. But I'm glad, so happy you pointed out the length, because I wanted to mention a film like this. It's almost 2 hours. You're right, and it's easily the longest of the six here.
And you feel it.
There's easy cuts to make in this film. There's scenes that don't add anything to the story, or they're not interesting or scary or funny, or I'm not sure what their inclusion was for.
There's the scene where the two go up in the bell tower, and the dude cuts his hand and blood falls down on the floor, and there's oh, what happened? And then it turns out nothing happened. That is 5-10 minutes of film that does nothing. It doesn't push character, it doesn't push plot. Nothing of consequence happened there. It's kind of amazing it's still in the movie.
Yeah, this could have been a really good, tight 90-minute movie. I think if it would have been 90 minutes, it could have been a classic. Thought of a lot more. I do want to, we talked about the kills. There's some, the cover one you always see is the guy with the shish kebab in the mouth that's on the front poster.
Yeah. And
that's kind of always what grabbed your attention. When you were young, you'd see that VHS and say, what is this? And you need to check it out. I don't know if I was as into the movie when I was young. It didn't speak to me as much, but maybe it was the strangeness around the ending, which now I really like the ending. I think it's, and you talk about the second time to watch it. I think the movie works less good the second time. I think watching it fresh is better,
right,
unless you're trying to make sense of it, because I find the ending, when it becomes our lead character's birthday, that scene is legitimately kind of creepy, I find. When she's singing happy birthday to me and there's all this death around, and but then the reveal of who the killer is, it sort of makes sense until you think too much about it and realize I don't know how much you want to say about the ending or not.
I agree. It doesn't make any sense at all. And the reason it doesn't make any sense at all is because they had an ending as scripted, and they decided last minute to change it. The whole half-sister and the woman's wearing a mask. Like, originally, Melissa Joan Hart was crazy, and she killed all of her friends, her doctor, and her father, and celebrated her birthday with a bunch of corpses. Roll credits. But at the last minute, committee thinking, they decided, no, we're going to change it up. There's got to be a twist. We're going to do something. And they backed into this new ending, which makes no sense. But it is creepy and strange, and you can't predict it. You can't see it coming because the filmmakers didn't see it coming. And it does somehow land with some measure of impact. Like, I mean, it does sort of work in a weird kind of accidental way. But yes, analytically, if you were going to look at this and say, did you do anything to set this up? Does it make sense? No. They had to cut a major death out of the movie, apparently, where originally the woman had her head split with an axe, but they couldn't show it in any way that the MPAA would allow it. So that character disappears until towards the end of the movie, she's seen standing in the rain, catatonic with fear.
Is that what that is? Because that made no sense. I couldn't understand what that was. There's a lady standing in the graveyard.
Yeah, she was one of the friends. She was supposed to have been killed off, but they cut that scene, and that was their solution.
Yeah, that turned me off, or not turned me off, but it confused me, and it kind of took me out for a little while trying to figure out what was this all about or what was happening. But when the half-sister pulls her mask off, that's the moment where I guffaw. I let out a good, because the way she does it, it's like a Scooby-Doo reveal.
It really is.
There's no indication that there's a mask, and she just pulls this nylon off her face, and it's like, oh, wow, look at that. It changed your teeth and everything.
And it's like a modern Mission Impossible mask. Like, there's no mask in the 80s that would have been that perfect. Her boyfriend was right next to her, didn't see the difference, like...
Yeah, you're right. And that's what I thought, too, Mission Impossible. But and then it turns out her explanation for why she was setting her up and why she wanted to kill her, I guess in that part it made sense until I thought, wait, why did she want to kill all of her own friends, though, as well?
Yeah.
That part I couldn't get on, but...
and why all this work with Melissa Joan Hart's backstory and her sort of big eyes and singing to herself. Like, if she's not crazy, why is she doing all of that shit?
Yeah, it's an entertaining movie. There's some great things to it. I just think it could have been tightened up a bit, and I don't know. I found as it was going, there were scenes that kind of draw on a bit, or drag on, and I found it at some points, I think, I'm not sure if I really like this movie as much as I thought I did. And then it's over, and once it's over, I feel like, okay, no, I liked it. That was fun. But,
and just to do service to the kills, because we are going to talk about Best Death. We're going to do some Jerry's like we haven't for a lot of time here. Two in particular that stand out for me, just for creativity prop kills. There's the motorbike kill, where the guy gets his scarf thrown into the wheel of the motorbike, right? Mm-hmm. And the weight room kill.
Yeah, that was a good one. That one. Flinch.
Yeah, again, depending on who the killer is, that seems to suggest someone very large and powerful is doing the killing. But, oh well.
Yeah, you're right. The shish kebab one gets all the press, but the weights, that one was well shot, because you don't see as much as you think you see, but you feel like you see a lot.
Yeah.
Just the way it's cut together.
This guy's trying to bench press, and the killer adds a bunch of weights and is just going to spot for him, and then isn't helping him to lift the weights. And as he's struggling with it, he drops one of the measured weights right on the guy's crotch, and the results are not good for anybody involved.
Yeah, and you got some good open brain surgery as well, which was pretty impressive, especially for the time as well.
They didn't skimp on the gore, and again, I just think it has an identity problem and a pacing problem. And but for people like you and I who like this type of movie, there is stuff to be found here. It's just it's a bit of a sit.
Yeah, and I watched it the day before my birthday, so that was extra fun.
Appropriate.
Who will dare to face the challenge of the FUNHOUSE? Who is mad enough to enter that world of darkness?
Something is alive in the FUNHOUSE. Something not alive like its father. Something better dead. Something that has the form of a human, but not the face.
This better be good.
It's gonna be great.
Something that feeds off the flesh and blood of young innocents.
Come on, here we go. This is it.
Something that tonight will turn the Funhouse into a carnival of terror.
I don't know what that thing is. We're gonna try to kill it. I just want to get the hell out of here.
The Funhouse, coming soon from Universal Pictures. The Funhouse. It's a carnival of terror from Tobe Hooper, the director who terrified you with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
All right, The Funhouse from Tobe Hooper. I know I have talked some shit about Tobe Hooper on the podcast before, but even though I've talked shit about Tobe Hooper, I put 2 of his films in the best films of the 70s. I really like his version of Salem's Lot, and I have a lot of respect for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it seems to me that the later into his career is sort of where things become really more problematic. He starts losing his budgets, and I don't know, I don't like to talk shit about, people, but word on the street is he had a bit of a drinking problem, and that started to affect his work later into his career. This is early. I misspoke. It was not 1980. It was 1981. I hate myself.
I love 1981. So
No, it's a great year for horror movies. Like, it genuinely is. It's sort of kicking down the door for what the 80s horror is going to be. So, we appreciate that. There's something about that carnival freak show aesthetic that's always going to be appealing, and for some reason doesn't get exploited near enough in the horror genre. Maybe it's because of the ugliness of the legitimate freak show thing. Like, we don't appreciate it the way we used to, the sort of whole carny thing. You want to look away, and yet you want to pay to see it. And what it would be like to, quote, run away with the circus. What is it like if your entire life literally is the circus? Like that can't necessarily be good for you psychologically. So I think that it's a great setting, and Tobe Hooper has proven in the past that he can deliver the goods as far as horror goes. And again, all of these are marking in the plus columns. I think the cast is pretty solid, and the scenario is not completely guffaw unbelievable. Are the kids smart? Are their choices good? No, but they're dumb kids. They're at this carnival and they decide, what would be fun? Let's stay overnight in this locked up ride. What could possibly go wrong? We'll have a blast.
But you're right. It's a fun idea, and you start watching this when you're young. You think that would be cool. Like, jump off, go in the dark funhouse ride, jump out the cart and hide in there, just spend the night. It would be a neat thing at that age, I think.
Yeah, it's a dumb adventure that you would do when you were 16 or 17 or, whatever. And, so it's not completely, face palm. These guys are like doing everything wrong. What's that sound? Let's go investigate. I think that it has a lot of it going for it. I guess my reservation, and I do like the Funhouse, my overall reservations about the movie is, even though it's 95 minutes to me, it felt long.
Oh, yeah?
There's something about the movie, particularly the first half an hour, and kind of some of the repetitive nature of what goes on inside the actual thing, where it ends up feeling long in the way that, like, Happy Birthday to Me actually was long. This one at times feels long. But what I appreciate about it is that it's not boring. It's setting the atmosphere. It's setting up legitimate reveals. When we finally see what's under that Frankenstein mask, it is genuinely shocking.
Yeah,
and
it's a good creature, monster, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
It's probably the only monster-ish movie, I guess, because you're right, it is a slasher still, but it's a monster movie too.
Yeah. But basic premise: they try to stay overnight at the carnival. They witness a carny murder, and they are spotted, and they're basically trapped inside the workings of this machine, and this creature is after them, and his father, whether or not he's biological or how that works, is helping to cover up the crime. So they're being whittled down, and they have 2 obstacles and all of the creepy sort of sideshow things. The gags within the ride that are designed to scare people can be used and reused again and again. There's also the inclusion of a little kid. This is a small pet peeve of mine, but usually when they interject a little Timmy character, and I believe his name is Timmy in this movie, I'm never scared for them. I'm never scared for the kid. And the movie does not ever succeed in making me worried for the child. But everybody else, that's another story. As someone who's not been a big fan of Tobe Hooper, this is me saying I am a fan of the Funhouse. The man knows what he's doing. If you like slasher movies, this is a good one.
Well said. I think we're on the same page a lot here for the things you're bringing up, because I do like the Funhouse, and I sometimes wonder if I should like it or not, because there are things about it where I wonder if it's a full movie at times. But then I realize what he's doing, and I appreciate it again, because taken at its base, it almost seems like the first half is just these kids at a carnival, and they're going on rides. They're going to check out the freak show. They're playing carnival games. They go on the Funhouse ride. What else?
Strip the tassel girls, yeah.
Yeah, they go to the fortune teller.
Yep.
All this stuff, and then the first kill isn't until about 45 minutes in the movie. And so it almost feels at some point the horror movie doesn't start until 50 minutes in, when you get the reveal of the guy that works at the Funhouse under the mask, and what's under the mask is scarier than the mask. Sure, it looks like it's a guy in a mask or some makeup, but that is a total Fangoria cover.
Oh yeah.
You know, back in the days, like you'd recognize that face from the magazine if you're, the one that would look at those things. But after I realize and look at it differently, I think, is he just filling time with these kids in the rides and checking out the animal oddities and all this, or is he building atmosphere? And the more I watch it, the more I understand you're building that atmosphere, and you're feeling this is a creepy carnival, and there's just something about it. There's at one point a guy walks past and he's got like blood on him. I'm not sure, and you sometimes notice him, sometimes you don't. He's not part of the movie, but there's something weird going on, and there's some homeless people around, and there's just an uneasiness, kind of a dirtiness around. And the one guy that pulls it all together for me he plays the freak show barkers, I guess they're called.
Yeah.
The guy that would stand outside the ride and say, "Come into the Funhouse, see what horrors await." And then he's the same character. He played 3 characters in the film.
Yeah.
There's also the guy at the animal freaks with the 2-headed cow saying they're all alive. Come see, and he also had the girls with the tassels. But I really think he brings this whole. There's just something weird about the whole atmosphere, and I credit a lot to him standing outside the ride, and he would get eye contact with our main girl, and there's just he would create that atmosphere. And,
I think they're showing us the difference too. Like, the kids are just having a bunch of fun, but the people who work there, they're not having fun. They're at work, right? And there's an ugliness to all the bright colors. Like, even in the opening title sequence, they're showing us pictures of clowns with these big smiles on their faces, and they have the same reaction that I would have, like, of the creepy toys they showed at the beginning of Woman in Black. Like, they're meant to be jolly and inviting and show you come to the park, but in this context, right away, they're creepy. And I think that's what he's doing with the carnival, the whole place. Like, it's fun if you don't linger, and these kids choose to linger.
Yeah, they could have just gone on the ride and went home. That would have been a short movie. But you're right, though. It's when I was young watching this movie, I enjoyed the first 5 minutes, because that's where,
The shower scene?
Yeah, see? I enjoyed I watched that, and then I would want to skip to 45 minutes in,
right,
when it became the monster movie. Now, being older, I appreciate the whole thing. He's not really building story, but he's building atmosphere. And I really enjoy now watching these kids just walking around this seedy carnival.
And he does the same thing in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, to be fair. Like, we spend a lot of time with the group in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think that he's more successful with the doom and gloom atmosphere in TCM in the way than he is with the Funhouse, because it's more up front and center, where you can get distracted by the rides and the kids. But It's weird that I didn't really feel like I got to know the kids that well, even though we spent that much time with them. I think it's maybe more successful at atmosphere than it is at character.
Yeah, I think so. And I want to give credit for this movie for having the most memorable line out of all 6 movies. It's when the monster's dad, or whatever he is, when he says the words, with God is my witness, I don't hate the sound of your voice. It's what a sweet thing for father to say. I loved it. I don't hate the sound of your voice, son. It was beautiful. But again, there are some parallels with Texas Chainsaw Massacre with this as well, with Leatherface being kind of tormented or being part of this weird family and not maybe knowing what he's doing. And this creature here, he's told, okay, you have to do one more bad thing for me, and then we'll go fishing.
Yeah.
He says so. He has to go kill these kids to get rid of the witnesses, and then they're gonna go fishing.
All right, you went and killed this girl, but we'll cover it up. We'll make it okay. Oh, great! Now we have witnesses. Well, we'll kill the witnesses. We'll get rid of the bodies, and then we'll be. But yeah, it's sort of like he is a monster, and yet, as far as this carnival guy is concerned, he's one of the boys. You know, he's part of the family, and he's going to do whatever it takes to defend him. We don't like either of these guys. That doesn't win any points with us. I'm not sad when I see him get skewered by the sword and shot several times towards the end of the movie. But I liked that in a weird way. They're both terrifying. They're both threats. But like well, it's hard to say he's the more malicious of the two because the creature did kill that woman at the beginning. But he is the one that's sort of driving the violence in a weird way as far as killing these kids. The creature, maybe it's not conflicted, but you know, if it had been raised in a different environment than this carnival, you know, maybe he'd be okay. There is ugliness to the movie as well. I really love the scene where Timmy gets rescued from the carnival, and his sister is still trapped in the works of the machine, but she can see through the spinning fan blades that Timmy is being driven away by her parents, and she's screaming to them, but because the fan is right in front of her, no one can hear her. Really like that image. And those tunnels are used very well later when another character gets trapped between the fan and this creature, and she is attacked, and we don't see what happens to her, but I really feel like there may be an implied sexual sort of layer to that attack. It's drawn
the monster
out.
does he does enjoy sex. That's been established. But I took it to be that he just kind of looked like he's clawing at her and just kind of used his hands just to rip her apart. And you're right,
they
it's
cut
kind
away.
Of it's kind of that Tobe Hooper thing again, kind of like Chainsaw, where there's not a lot of gore.
But it feels like there's a lot of gore.
Yeah, I don't know. It's they didn't use a lot of not a lot of fake blood was used in this production.
Right.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
But I mean, people get stabbed, people get shot. I guess it's not Friday the 13th. We hadn't sort of necessarily gotten to the Tom Savini maniac prowler Friday the 13th end of it. But that said, in the same year, Happy Birthday to Me had some pretty good gore to it.
That's true.
But it's a constant misnomer about Texas Chainsaw Massacre that movie is so crazy violent. No, it's not crazy violent. It's crazy intense. And this movie's not crazy violent. It's more scary. And I think that's where it's more successful. I think that if a slasher fan is disappointed, maybe they want a little bit more teeth and tissue. I think like I said where I started, the carnival atmosphere and the sort of vibe of the movie is frightening. The kills are kind of just like the bonus on top of it, really. It was sort of like the scene is set so well that it works as well as or better than anything else. And it's not Session 9, but I keep talking about Session 9 as a movie that has such an impressive atmosphere that almost anything that happens in that place would be scary somehow. Yeah. So that's an accomplishment. So I am softening on Tobe Hooper, but still, you look at some of his later work in his career and it gets pretty ugly.
Yeah, I think there's definitely fun be had at the Funhouse.
Yeah.
And I was at that right age when I saw it the first time, and where I would go on these rides. Anytime the carnival came to town, we'd have a big summer exhibition. And I loved being in that cart, going through the dark tunnels. And in my head, I would think, what if there was a creature that lived in this funhouse?
Yeah.
And that would make the ride so and they'd get so dark in those rides too.
Yeah.
And so the idea of what if you're staying here overnight when everything's shut down? And, but yeah, it's, for the kid in you, I think if you have a young kid, 13, 14,
Yeah.
and they can still, get past the 80s-ness of it, it could add a little extra fright to them too.
Yeah, bit of a pacing thing, but you're right. I like the idea of those little cart rides. I don't know if they still even do those anymore, going through that'll take you through, and these mechanical ghosts will jump out and go boo. And you can hear and see all the mechanical things happening, and when you're an adult, it's harder to be scared by them. But a lot of the rides at the very end, right before they leave, they have an actual staff member in a mask that'll come out and go boo. That'll get you. So that's the question, or that's the thing about the Funhouse. We're going to make a movie about the guy that lives in that thing, and he has boo. And keep the mask on, please. Wrong Turn 3, Left for Dead. The director, Declan something or other. I'm such a professional.
That's exactly it.
Declan O'Brien. He actually does a 2 or 3 of these going forward. And I have been, up to this point in the series, kind of an apologist for the Wrong Turn franchise. The first movie I've always had sort of a guilty pleasure response to. I think that there's some great sequences in it. They got a way better cast than they almost needed for that movie. And yeah, there's some problems with it, but it's fun and it's quick and it gets the job done. And part 2, as far as direct to video sequels go, is kind of amazing. It's impressive what they did with it. So even though it's direct to video and it's, Cannibal Killers in the Woods part 3, Wrong Turn 3, I walked into this one with some optimism, which was unfortunate. Which was a little unfortunate.
Right off the bat, I think when you start the film, they get you. I found that they got me on their side. It opened well,
right?
Yeah, as far as it opened up with a nude scene, I guess, and a really good kill. That was the bow and arrow through the breast and then through her eyeball. Yeah. That was a really good kill. Unfortunately, that was probably the best kill of the whole movie, and it happened in the first 3 minutes.
But it does set this tone, and some will say good, some will say bad. But yes, we were introduced to 2 girls. I think they smoke some weed, and one of them instantly takes her top off. And because. And again, I'm not here to crush anyone's dream. I don't think she was an amazing actor in any way, shape, or form. I think that she was cast because she was willing to put up with the makeup and put up with having her boobs out for this sequence. And yes, as you say, she is killed very graphically after we see her boobs, involving her nudity in the kill, and her eyeball and everything. And here is Three Finger, and he's got his little, incest baby nephew, something. I don't know what the exact relationship is that he's raising.
I think that became his son from the second, didn't it? Or
was it? I can't remember.
I don't think it matters.
It doesn't really matter. He's teaching this little kid mutant how to kill and cannibalize people in the woods. And I don't know if this establishment's supposed to be, cute, look at, they're bonding over their murder. But right away to me, I was like, okay, this is immediately kind of into Friday the 13th 5 territory. This is a sleazier entry of Wrong Turn right away. Now, on top of being a sleazier entry of Wrong Turn right away, is it going to be fun and engaging the way that I felt that the first 2 were? And the short answer to that question for me is no. It involves mainly, once the plot kicks in, there's a bunch of prisoners bus, sort of a fugitive opening, right? They stage an escape. They get off of this bus. They're in the wilderness, and they have to walk out. But right away, like they haven't even recovered from the crash, they're being hunted by these cannibal creatures. And the scenes sort of cut between people walking through the woods, yelling at each other, and, you know, telling lies and backstories that we don't care about at all. And
That don't matter.
these booby traps being set by the creatures and them being hunted by the, well, I guess they're not creatures, the inbred hill folk, whatever you want to call them. And when the kills come, well, that's what I'm there for, so I guess I'm happier. But almost all of the character stuff I find either boring or just poorly executed, or just stolen from so many movies that we are not even halfway through the movie where I feel completely checked out. And I know that the movie's trying, and they do definitely bring the gore at a few places. And that's when I get like, well, you guys do have practical effects here. You just hacked off a fake limb. Good for you. But there's a scene earlier in the movie where a guy runs into a trap, where the CGI in it is so terrible that when they cut to the practical effects after the CGI, it had me wondering why they bothered with the CGI at all. You shot great practical effects, and then you ruined them with terrible CGI. Go with your strengths. Lean into your strengths. Now, I hate being this hard on a low-budget direct-to-video wrong turn sequels, and it unfortunately I don't think really gets a whole lot better for the franchise moving forward here. But I don't know, like I see that like within these kill sequences, they're fans of the genre and they want to deliver the goods, but it's just not coming together for me. I liked the Wrong Turn franchise up until this point. This is the one that changed my mind. But was it me? Was it my high expectations that made me want too much of the movie? Or did the movie genuinely fail? To that I ask you.
Yeah, it's the one thing about this one, it started off, like you talked about the fugitive idea, but a busload of prisoners being transported during the middle of the night. And so at that point I thought, okay, well, I guess maybe they're trying something different. Maybe this will be something interesting. How about, we all know about these wrong turn cannibal hillbillies, whatever they are. They're good at killing off random teenagers. Maybe they finally met their match. What about a bunch of hardened criminals?
Right.
What could this be like? But, you know, and then they add all this backstory. One of them, we're told, is an undercover police officer, which we think, okay, we got a guy on the inside. Maybe this is going to play out somehow, or this is going to have something to do with something. And it turns out it doesn't. And then we have a side plot of now they found a truck with a bunch of stolen money in, right? An armored car, sorry.
Yeah.
So they have all these prisoners trying to find freedom, trying to get back to the street. There's all this stolen money they got to carry. There's this infighting. And one of these guys is an undercover cop. And it almost seemed like they were making it up as they went along, or writing it as they went, and then said, in the end, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. They're just a bunch of guys walking through the woods, getting killed one by one.
And over again, it was the same scene of the same people walking through the woods, having variations of the same conversation over and over again. Like the violence was a reprieve. You're like, thank you for shutting that guy up. Oh my God.
Yeah. And there was I kept waiting for that police officer that was posing as one of the criminals, for that to pay off somewhere or have something to do with, you know, this is going to turn things. But and then he just walked right into a trap and got his face CGI'd off as well. So
and again, the CGI didn't work, but the makeup effects did. It was so frustrating.
Yeah, and it got kind of silly with the one cannibal this time, Three Finger, I guess we call him, but he would just show up wherever he had to be for that kill to work. And, you know, oh look, he's on top of that tree right in front of us now, or now he's here. But a lot of it was pretty convenient just to have him picking them all off one by one.
And there's something to be said about the level of dispassion that the film had produced in me, that the criminals managed to catch the little mutant and kill it, and they decapitate it and put its head on a stick to sort of say fuck you to the other cannibal, and I felt nothing. Like it really didn't affect me. Like obviously that kid was obviously a terrible monster, and but so are these guys. But in another movie that was trying a little bit more, that could have been a really troubling sequence. Or what have we become? Or or Tree Finger. We do see his reaction, and he's not happy about it, but that could feed into like Tree Finger's viciousness as we move forward in the movie. But no, it was just another plot point. One down, one to go.
Yeah, there were some good kills. You're right, and the ones that were good were done quite well.
Yeah.
But there was just the ones that were cartoon. They some of them just really did not work, and that's really where it's had to lose some points for me.
What gets me mad too is like if a movie can have bad CGI. You know how I love Deep Blue Sea,
yeah,
right?
It's gonna happen.
You can have bad CGI, but you shouldn't know that you have bad CGI. Like it should be aged CGI. It's like that would be passable in 1997, but it is not passable anymore. When this movie came out, that was terrible CGI. Like the day it hit shelves, it was terrible CGI, and I personally resent that. Like, it was one of those things, like, if it was a makeup effect that was that bad, you would have reshot it or cut it out of the movie. Like, why is it in there? Like, that is a bad decision.
You're right, this is 2009. We got to know better.
Yeah. Here's something positive I can say about the movie, because I haven't said anything positive about the movie. The entire cast is British, pretty much.
Oh, yeah?
You'd never know it. I think that's kind of impressive. I don't know.
That's very interesting.
They shot it overseas, and apparently the cast all got along. They had a great time doing it and pouring blood all over themselves. I think it was a movie that was a lot more fun to make, unfortunately, than it was to watch. It's too bad, though, because I do have affection for the Wrong Turn franchise, or at least for what it wanted to be, which was sort of fun slasher movies in the woods, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't mind them. I think they're fun. They're simple. You can put them on, and it's just people getting killed in creative ways, and some gruesome stuff happens. This just isn't one of the better entries.
No, they had something going here, though. Those first two kind of worked for me. It just is. I'm not mad, Scott. I'm disappointed.
Now, how about, can we talk about the ending?
Yes, please.
Which ending? This movie had like 3 endings. And of course, you got to have your slasher, your killer be unkillable. So the first time he died, they stabbed him in the chest, I believe, in the house.
Full through.
And then,
yeah,
right through him. And then it was the big hug. Oh, thank God this nightmare is over.
And he's back.
And then they leave, and they get away on the truck, and there's Three Finger in the middle of the road. And what he does then is something Indiana Jones couldn't even do on his best day. When he swings a hook and flings himself up on the back of the moving tow truck in the worst green screen effect I think I've ever seen. I mean, that is
how did he get ahead of the car? How did he get ahead of the car while being impaled?
So we get this extra battle and they kill him again. This time with a hook through the face. So this should do it for sure this time. And then, okay, great, the movie's over. He's not coming back from that. And then we learn one of the convicts has changed his ways. They go their separate ways. Let's do good with our life now. And everything, that the movie should be over.
Yeah.
But then we have that little stinger at the end where the good cop goes back to get all the stolen money, and the other convict that turned good shoots him in the back. And then one mysterious hillbilly shows up and kills that guy.
Yeah.
And we're looking at his feet to know Wrong Turn 4 coming soon.
Yeah, and the thing is that I think that they did definitively, air quotes, kill Three Finger. Like, he was burning. His carcass was on the car on fire the last time we saw it. So I think you're right. I don't think that was supposed to be Three Finger. There's just, we're never going to run out of cannibalist hill folk. But
I just thought it was...
I wanted the movie to be over, and it kept on not being over.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that tow truck scene where he just flung himself on the back was just too much. And it's bothered me when we're learning it. We're supposed to learn a lesson or something about good. I don't know what they're trying to teach us, but the one guy that changed his ways, and then in the end, everybody just killed each other, and it just seemed all for nothing. I don't know. I didn't really get if they're trying to do something moralistic with it or what, but I was already checked out by that point anyway.
Yeah. You can skip this one, you guys. Good enough.
This is what we call an urban legend. Contemporary folklore passed on as a true story. Something you might have heard about mixing pop rocks and soda.
Supposedly, your stomach and your intestines first.
Voila, still alive. Mr. Brooks, please.
He's gonna explode! Somebody call 911!
They are the legends we've all heard.
Gang members drive around at night with their headlights off, and when someone goes to flash from their high beams to warn them, they kill them.
The stories we've all told.
Guy and a girl, and they're parked out in the woods. The guy steps out, and the girl starts to hear these scratching noises. It's her dead boyfriend hung from a tree.
The tales we've all listened to.
Isn't there another story about a guy with an axe hiding in a woman's back seat?
My mom still checks the back seat before getting into a car.
But just because it never happened doesn't mean it never will.
The decapitated body was found in her car.
I knew I should have gone to NYU.
This girl, she could have been any one of us.
What if there is a lunatic on campus?
What is he gonna do next, huh? Maybe put spider eggs in Bubblicious? The idea of an urban legend serial killer. It's a stretch.
The call's coming from inside the house.
Could it be an urban legend?
So we're going to jump ahead we're going to 1998, an urban legend. Yes. It's directed by Jamie Blanks, and subsequent to this, he did a movie called Storm Warning and a movie called Valentine. And I think they're both better than urban legends. But urban legend does have some charm to it. But its big problem, as far as I'm concerned, is its 90s-ness. Whereas I have an affection for horror movies that are very 80s, horror movies that are like way deep into the 90s have a certain aesthetic, and I guess we kind of have to blame Scream for this, where it's so self-aware and so winky and so pop culture reference focused that they forget the scary part. They forget the part that this is actually a horror movie. They're so much more interested in being cool and meta. And this is a problem that happened throughout the 90s and that almost got overcorrected in the early 2000s when we got, torture porn and all this really super dark horror started coming. I almost think as a response to how soft a lot of horror movies were getting. And that would be my description of urban legend. It's a soft slasher movie. It's a slasher movie you can watch with your mom. It takes all of these classic stories, legends about there's a guy in the backseat of the car, the hook-handed killer, and uses that as a framework for these campus set killings. Once again, another Canadian-made slasher movie, but it doesn't have that same flavor of the 80s exploitations. This is just another glossy, kind of well-executed, big-budget wannabe Scream. But it is so not Scream and it doesn't have a strong enough identity of its own that it sort of feels like a 90s slasher movie. And if you're in the mood for a 90s slasher movie, for sure, here it is. And, you got your young Daniel Harris, you got babyface Jared Leto, you got all these references to 90s TV shows and 90s fashion and 90s music that's going to age the movie terribly. That's already aging the movie terribly. But if that's to your taste, I think you could have a lot of fun with urban legend. But for me, especially considering some of the edge that the other movies I was watching on the list had, this felt kind of bland to me. Maybe not necessarily bad, but kind of bland. That's where I'm starting with urban legend.
I'm kind of surprised because we're totally going the same way, and I wasn't sure if you were going to be going that way with this one.
Oh, you're agreeing? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you're kind of stealing my lines, but
sorry.
because I wanted to say it's a date night slasher. Because it was for me back in the late 90s, 98. I seen this when it came out with my wife, and there's something isn't it funny how we look and say, oh, this movie is so 90s, and we hold that against it.
Right.
But if it's something, this movie is so 80s, we love it to death for exactly that reason.
Yeah.
But there's something about these late 90s slasher films that there's a, and if you look at the covers of them, you can tell from the covers. You look at the cover of Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, Halloween H2O came about, the same time around. And I think, sort of different, but Final Destination even. Just the look of the cover. It's good-looking, attractive young stars, and it just shows their faces. In the background, maybe there's a knife or a mask or whatever.
Something sinister.
For that movie. Yeah, but that's what they sell it on. It's the attractive cast, plus there's something in the background that's maybe scary. And for, Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and Urban Legends, to me, I think were kind of like the big three ones of that era that kind of caught on. And for me, Urban Legend is easily the third best franchise or the third best movie of them as well. And you're right, yeah, the 90s-ness of it, it just doesn't catch me the same. It's your little in joke for what's his name, the guy from he was in Dawson's Creek.
Right, Joshua Jackson or something.
That's his name, yeah. I wasn't a fan. My wife loved the show, but he goes in his car, turns on the radio, and the theme song for Dawson's Creek comes on. And he turns it off, and that's supposed to be funny because look, that's the show he was in. And we don't need that in this movie.
And if they'd done that in like Happy Birthday to Me with Melissa Joan Hart, and she was like watching Little House on the Prairie for a scene, that would have been obnoxious and distracting. But in the 90s, that's funny and meta, right? And again, that's Kevin Williamson. That's the Scream effect. And I like Scream, but what Scream managed to do was to be doing that while still being an effective horror movie. And I think that's where this movie comes up short. Not that all of the suspense sequences are failures to wall, but it's always being undercut by the look at us, look at this young, affordable, popular on TV cast, and look how winky we're being. And the more you wink, the less, or the more difficult it becomes for us to be scared at the movies. And that's why, Scream is a harder thing to reproduce than people realize. I liked that, they were definitely horror savvy, like the casting of Brad Dourif as the gas station attendant at the beginning of the movie. Presses a lot of buttons for fanboys, right? There's Chucky. There's this guy who's been Exorcist 3, a lot of great horror movies. I recently talked about Graveyard Shift. He's great in that movie. But he's this horror movie face that we're like, she shouldn't trust him, and we're using it. But I know where this scene is going from the second she sees Brad Dourif. Like, I'm not fooled by the scene. Maybe if I was fooled by the scene, it would be more effective. But this is sort of the cold open of the movie. This is the big, whoa, get into Urban Legend. And he's in the back seat. The creepy gas station attendant is trying to get you out of the car to warn you about the psycho in your car. That's why he's being weird. And it's a classic Urban Legend story. And, I see what they're going for. And I even think that it could be a good idea for a scary horror movie. In a way, that's kind of what Candyman's about, right? Urban legends that sort of manifest in real, literal kills. So it's not like it couldn't have worked. And I do think the sequence with Joshua Jackson being hung inadvertently by his girlfriend was well done. That sequence by itself worked. It was sort of a good... And it's technically an accomplished film. It looks good. The acting is good. I don't want to be mean to the film. I didn't feel very much while I was watching it.
I want to mention, you mentioned the opening scene.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, point that out as well, because I thought that scene was well done.
Mm-hmm.
That one, I think it got me because he's so clearly the bad guy that works at the gas station. He's too creepy, right?
Right.
So, whoa, this is weird. Why is he, don't trust him. and and it turned around and said, "Oh, right, he's trying to tell you the guy's in the back seat." But the way it was shot and the way it was executed, and the way the music hit, I thought that was maybe the best scene of the film as far as my thoughts. And it ends with a beheading. I mean, it's not, again, this is not a graphic film as well. It's a date night horror movie, and your girl will hold your hand during it or whatever. But
it's
it was stylishly done, I thought. But,
yeah, it's very well done for sure. I want it to be scary.
It didn't follow it the whole way through though, the same way, but it got a little bit coincidental the way some of these urban legends just happened to happen. You mentioned Brad Dourif. We also got Robert Englund.
That's right, Professor. Yeah.
We got Freddy Krueger in this movie, and another recognizable scary face. We didn't really use him the way we could have.
No.
I felt.
There's also, I'm trying to find the name of the actress, Rebecca Gayheart.
Right.
She was briefly, I think, in Scream 2 as well, but I don't know what her claim to fame was. There's something familiar about that actress. She must have been in some high-profile movie at some point.
I think her big thing was she was in a lot of makeup commercials, or she was a model, I think, for some makeup product. But.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and spoil some urban legend for you. This movie is from 1998, so here we go. She turns out to be the killer in this movie. And I can't decide if she has a really good crazy face or a really bad crazy face.
She has a definite crazy face, though.
She does.
I enjoy her performance once she is openly crazy.
Yes.
Because she's kind of bland throughout the film, but when she goes full nuts and reveals, even her hair gets crazy.
She's so big.
Proper.
So big.
When it becomes, hey, I'm the bad guy, all of a sudden her hair is insane and she's over the top crazy.
Yes.
And it's like, there's no way we couldn't have known she was crazy. How did you like this?
Where did that come from?
Yeah, I did like her performance in kind of a cheesy way, near the end, because it does become that late 90s whodunit slasher, where Scream, I Know What You Did, all of those type of, the big catch on it is any one of us could be the killer.
Right.
And you see a bunch of clues that implicate everybody. The main thing that they keep seeing repeatedly in this movie is the winter jacket that the killer's wearing. And that's the only, there's not a hockey mask or or something that they know of. But the killer always has this big winter jacket with the hood up so he can't see the face. It turns out everybody in this fucking town owns the same fucking winter jacket. And it makes no sense. The movie doesn't take place in winter. I don't see anybody cold. But everyone, women, men, they have this winter jacket in their car, in their closet, and it's just too much. Oh, look, he must be the killer. He owns a winter jacket. So everyone's scared of him now for a scene until he dies.
Well, we're setting up payoffs and lessons that don't come up. The Jared Leto character is kind of like this soulless reporter, and you feel like he's going to learn his lesson some way through the course of the story, but no, not really. There's been a lot of time with this security guard woman who's going to, factor into it, and there's no real surprise or twist with what they do with that character. I like Danielle Harris. She was, of course, the little girl in Halloween 4 and 5, and now she's all grown up playing this goth chick who's got a drug problem and screwing a different guy in her dorm every night. But I know she's kind of like this sort of coveted sexual figure in the horror community, but I have a weird Drew Barrymore thing with her. It's because I saw her as a little child. She feels like she's my niece or something like this. I don't want to see her getting doggy styled in her bed. Thank you. No, this isn't doing it for me at all. And her character is, again, a trope of the slasher one. And this is not necessarily me talking shit about it. It's just something that slasher movies have. She's not a likable character. She doesn't say anything at any time, ever, that makes her warm or likable. So we don't feel affected by her death by design. I think we're supposed to laugh when she dies, too, because it's she's making all this noise in her bed while she's being strangled, and her roommate thinks she's having sex
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and says, "Oh, keep it down, you guys." So we don't care that she's dying. We're supposed to think it's kind of funny, in fact. So.
But I just again and again, I see what the movie's doing, and sometimes it's doing it well, but I'm not feeling it. I'm just not
And
feeling it.
yeah, there's a bunch of red herrings in it. I'm trying to remember his name. Canadian actor. He was the janitor in the school.
Julian Richings.
Exactly. Yeah, and of course he's got kind of a creepy-looking face.
Yeah.
You know, and every time they see him, he's in a dark basement, looking odd, and so they're trying really hard to make us think, oh, maybe he's the killer because he looks kind of creepy, and he also has a winter jacket.
Dun dun dun. Fun fact, Scott, Julian Richings played Three Finger in the original Wrong Turn.
Oh, right.
There you go.
Wow. No, and I like the guy. It's good to see Bucky hate in any movie. But
That's right.
But I mean, they did something. They did put a dog in a microwave.
That happened.
We'll give them credit for that. That doesn't happen in every movie. It was right before that. It was kind of a Scream moment because there was a phone call, and I swear it sounded like the Scream voice on the phone saying, "Do you like urban legends?" It was just too much Scream. And
did you hear the one about the hook-handed killer?
But there's a dog in a microwave, and I said I liked the first kill mostly because of how it was shot, or just kind of the suspense about it. But was there a memorable kill in this movie?
Maybe Joshua Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, it was, even that was he was hung and he was off screen, really.
But the fact that she was trying to speed away, and that was the thing that hung him, I thought was kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, because I feel like Tara Reid's death could have been spectacular because that one was drawn out a bit. She was chased through the building and then finally cornered. The killer has his weapon up, and it's off screen, and that's it. And the slasher movie, I want to see some slashing. I believe it was rated R, so if you're going to be R anyways,
earn it.
Make it R. Earn it.
Yeah. Agreed. Almost, but not quite.
Yeah. I mean,
We're agreeing way too much this episode, dude. This is boring. We're going to have to pick a fight somehow.
Okay. Next film, let's disagree. I think we will.
Okay.
15 years ago, on Christmas Eve, his family became his victims.
What have you done?
Now,
All roads and airports are officially closed. This one is not gonna let up.
a group of college friends
That sucks. Everyone should be home for Christmas.
are about to discover
Lauren, we're opening up presents.
Why don't you open the present we got you?
their house
I got it.
is his home.
All is calm, all is bright. Who is in my house tonight?
Don't you have lots of toys to deliver to good little boys and girls?
You really shouldn't provoke somebody like that.
And on December 25th,
You're definitely getting punked.
Is that Santa's reindeer?
all he wants for Christmas
Is Megan in her room?
is a new family he can treat like his very own.
Look, I'm a fan in a weird way of Glenn Morgan, the guy who directed this remake, Black Christmas. I have been and do cheer for him. He did a remake of this movie Willard, starring Crispin Glover as a guy who can control rats, and it bombed hard. And I don't know, I thought it had its own qualities. He's done like 17 or 18 episodes of The X-Files, and he's written some stuff. But, well, this is the movie that kind of ended his feature filmmaking career.
Yeah.
It's weird to me because I think Willard failed and he wanted to make something successful. And he thought, and again, I'm just putting thoughts and words in his head. I don't know his experience of things. He does a remake, high-profile remake of a famous slasher movie, Easy Money in the Bank. How hard could it be? Well, it's harder to make a good slasher movie than you think. And again, I'm not going to be wall-to-wall shitty about this movie. In fact, there's some stuff that I get a lot of guilty thrill out of. But it is not Black Christmas. This is a remake of a movie called Black Christmas, which had a lot of really innovative point of view kills. In fact, when we originally did Slasher Cinema History, I came very close to putting that on the list instead of When a Stranger Calls. It probably deserved to be there before Stranger Calls, but at the time I wanted to use it for my Christmas episode because I was stupid. But anyway, we have a story there that's very, very bleak, themed on Christmas. People getting abortions and a man's looking desperately for his daughter who he knows in his heart is dead. Like, he just knows the second that she's not where she says she's going to be, that something terrible has happened, and he's right. And it's got all this intense atmosphere, and it's not a Friday the 13th slasher. Friday the 13th, like, we hadn't got there yet. This was a different thing. Black Xmas, Glenn Morgan's take on the material, is a completely gruesome, malicious, ridiculous, pull the eye out of the skull, gruesome feast of a horror movie. And I can be down for that. But that's Hills Have Eyes. Like, that's Wrong Turn. That's not Black Christmas. That's not the movie that you are making. That's the movie that you made. And so if I can turn off my brain and say, okay, it's not Black Christmas, it's just a slasher movie set at Christmas time, I can actually have a lot of fun with how crazy the movie is, because let's be clear, Black Xmas is out of its fucking mind. But the original is classic, and I don't feel the love and respect for the original, so I have strong reservations nonetheless. Good cast and some solid moments to it, but I think maybe too crazy for its own good might be something I could say about it. I'm really split down the middle about the movie because I like the filmmaker and I like some of the stuff in the movie, but if I was making a remake of Black Christmas, it would look nothing like this.
See, and I look at it saying, this is not a remake of Black Christmas, because this is a completely different movie. You're right, and it's maybe a tribute to or inspired by, it's its own movie with nods to Black Christmas. It takes certain things. You got the unicorn crystal and people with bags over their face getting suffocated, the sorority house, certain ideas, but it's a completely different movie. You're right, and is it a better movie than the original Black Christmas? No. But I will say it's a more fun movie than the original Black Christmas.
And fun does go a long way.
This is the one. This is the guilty pleasure for me in this stack. Where when we spoke about guilty pleasures, I considered bringing this one into the mix. Because this film is hated by everyone I've ever spoken to, and I think maybe one shy person put up their hand once and said, "I like Black Christmas." Shut up, you don't like it. But,
hate's a strong word. Hate is a strong word, but I do have problems.
Yeah, this movie is hated, and most of it is because it's called Black Christmas, and that's what really bothered people. I'm not rating this movie, comparing it to Black Christmas or how a remake of that movie should have been. I'm comparing it to 5 other slasher movies today, and the enjoyment I got out of that one. So that's kind of how I look at it. And I think if you're going to do a remake, we've already had that Black Christmas. Take that idea and maybe what's your bonkers take on it. And this one, you're right, it is gruesome, and there's so much eye trauma in it. If eye trauma is a hard thing for you, it's like such a gory kind of thing, getting eyes pulled out and eyes eaten and eyes squished and eyes stabbed. Everyone dies from eye stuff happening. So my daughter came in and watched a scene where she came down to say goodnight to me right before someone got their eye squished, and she was not pleased with it.
Oh, come on, Brooke.
But this is the one I feel like every now and then I'll see someone on a webpage say something sort of positive about this movie, and I'll get excited saying, I have way too much fun watching Black Christmas, and I know I'm not supposed to. I'm supposed to be better than this, but for whatever reason, this is balls out fun for me.
I think you like it more than I do. I'm getting that feeling from it.
No, I
See, and again, I will try and
I think
separate
so.
myself, but like, it's tough. The original film is a movie of patience and of atmosphere, and that did not have a lot of brutality to it. And you can't say any of those things about this remake. And look, it's got balls. Like the backstory that they come up with to the, like, in the original film, they have this series of phone calls that come to the house, and it's clearly somebody with multiple personalities, and we meet all of these characters through his voice. And what they have done is come up with a backstory where this little kid had abusive parents, and he killed or he witnessed them committing a murder, and he killed the stepfather, and then ended up fathering a child with his mother on Christmas. Like, it goes really fucking weird. And once again, he's got this weird, he dresses up female, which is like a classic thing with throughout a lot of horror movies. Leatherface, psycho, like the weird gender confusion thing within horrors that I think we maybe need to consider outgrowing at some point. But, like, yeah, making cookies out of people's flesh, pulling eyeballs out of their, like, face. It's incredible. Another interesting thing about the movie is the B cast of this is full of Michelle Trachtenberg and Mary Elizabeth Winstead, like actresses who end up going on to bigger, better things. They're like murder victim number 2, murder victim number 4. Andrea Martin, who was in the original Black Christmas, and through SCTV, great Canadian actress, like to see her. Completely wasted in the movie. Love to see her, but completely wasted in the movie, right? So I think what they needed to do was to, like, separate themselves as far as they could from the original and just give it a different title and, yeah, like, be your own crazy thing. Like, I think it's kind of disrespectful to say if you're making a remake of Friday the 13th and nobody dies in it, you fucked up, right? Like, you've fucked up. Know what you are and be that. And it's weird for me to say if this had a different movie, I would have a different title for the movie. It would have a more positive review, but that is sort of true for me. Like, a lot of my problems with the movie is the conceit that it's Black Christmas, and that to me either means that Glenn Morgan didn't see what Black Christmas was or didn't care, and instead he's just like, I'm gonna make a gruesome slasher movie which is gonna, hit all the marks for that audience, and I'm gonna make my money so I can make the next movie, which I really want to do. Unfortunately, it also bombed, and he hasn't made a feature since. He's gone back to TV.
And this is one I've watched several times now, and looking at some of the special features on it, if you got that far after watching the movie that you wanted to see more, they did have Bob Clark as executive producer. And they show him on set a lot, and he's approving this and saying, we're making a really fun, scary movie here. And he seems on board. Maybe he's supposed to or not, but I didn't get the indication from him that they were making hitting all over his movie that he made. But
no, he's getting a paycheck out of the deal, and sooner or later they're going to get around to remaking Black Christmas. It's a strange choice that way. So if I try to separate myself from Black Christmas, what are my reservations with the movie otherwise? Well, I do think that the bonkers tone of the backstory and the serial killer, when juxtaposed with the quote-unquote reality of the girls, like, they don't exist in the same universe at all, but the movies still have these bizarre flourishes, specifically Andrea Martin's death.
I love that. Death by icicle.
Completely random. And again, eye trauma, right? Mary Elizabeth Winstead's being killed in the car. She backs away in horror. She bumps into the wall. The icicle falls. She looks up, and the icicle pierces through her head. Now, that's ridiculous on its face and with everything else going on, but, like, is it a comedy? Is this movie trying to be funny? Are we supposed to laugh there? What is your reaction supposed to be? Sorry.
The way the movie's going at that point, once the icicle falls right through her eye, I laugh and I'm having a great time. I don't know why. What's wrong with me? But clearly something is. I'm not taking any of it seriously from the moment go. So it's like, why not have an icicle go through her head by accident? And that's good.
Well, and I think you just put your finger on it. I think that this movie doesn't take itself seriously, and I wanted it to take itself more seriously than it did. The first one definitely does. If this was Dead Snow, or if this was a movie like Evil Dead 2, where like wall to wall everything was crazy and dialed up to 11 at all time, and the characters were all cartoons, and like it was shot with the same level of insanity with which it was written, then I think, yeah, this could be like a Christmas themed Evil Dead. It could be like a holiday tradition. Right? But it just doesn't quite close the deal for me.
It kind of makes Rob Zombie's Halloween look respectful.
Right.
In comparison, I guess. And as far as the cast, you touched on that a bit. There are people that moved on to do stuff that are known for other things, but their characters are really nothing in the movie. They're identified basically as there's the brunette one, there's the blonde one, and then there's the drunk one, and the other brunette, and Andrea Martin. And it doesn't really matter any of the backstories. They're all just there to get their eyes gouged out eventually.
Yeah. Well, and again, the house mother in the original was kind of a funny character. She had bottles hidden all over the place, and she was really hard on the girls, but at the same time, when their parents are around, she would lie on their behalf to defend their behavior. And you got Andrea Martin here, I don't see as often as I would like, use her. Use her. She could be really funny. She was on SCTV, you know. Let's see this middle-aged woman try to be one of the girls with all these 20-nothings and fail and have it be kind of sad and funny or something, you know. But I admit, when we get into the crazy bonkers backstory and like the guy crawling through the walls and under the floors and peeping at the girls and stuff like that, like there is fun to be had here. It's just it sort of shifted my perspective of Glenn Morgan a little bit. Like I think he took the easy way out on making this remake of Black Christmas, and he kind of made a tonal mess. It does have moments of fun, but I think he thought down about the slasher genre. I think he underthought the movie a little bit. And he's fine, by the way. Like, he's working mainly in television, but he and his partner basically created the Final Destination franchise, so, like, he's fine. Like, it's not like he's, like, homeless somewhere trying to dream of, like, how he used to be something in Hollywood. But I do think that
living inside the walls.
Yeah, he's a technically solid filmmaker, and I would like to live in the world where, 15 years later, there were 3 or 4 other Glenn Morgan movies that we could be talking about. Because I bet you if he made a full crazy horror movie themed like this, we would, love it. Or if he, I bet you he has a really good, solid, clean horror movie in him. This Willard and Black Christmas kind of sunk him, and it's unfortunate because they don't wall-to-wall suck. But I also get why the horror community kind of rejected them, too. So, it's tough. I want to like it more than I do.
It has a moment where there's a bit of a twist to it. I mean, you kind of see it coming because there's no way that Billy, the killer, can be everywhere at once.
That's right.
When we finally realize that, yes, his sister is still in the attic and doing some of the killing herself as well.
His sister-daughter.
So we end up having 2 killers, which, in the original, we don't know who is the killer. In the end, it still could be the boyfriend. We're never really shown exactly who the killer is. He might still be out there. But in this one, it's clearly, these are our killers, and they messed up. And what I get a kick, if the film hasn't been crazy enough yet, Billy's sister, Agnes, is played by, I believe he was a camera operator or someone on the set. And they just said, they kind of figured, you got a weird look and long hair. Hey, you should be in the movie. What are you doing? But yeah, and he's so clearly a male. He's got those male features, but they put the hair in front of his face, and he's got a manly voice. And if the movie wasn't crazy yet, it's getting crazier. And yeah, if you've been taking it serious for some reason up until then, I think that's when you should just stop and say, okay, I'm not going to take this serious anymore.
I think certainly by the time they have that 1-2 punch with Andrea Martin and Mary Elizabeth Winstead, it was very clear what the movie was like. And we get to the hospital finish. It has a very Scream 4 ending to the thing. Although this predates Scream 4, I guess. So Scream 4 has a a very Black Christmas ending, I guess. But there's fun to be had here. I don't think it deserves to be completely outright dismissed the way it has been. Same thing with Willard. Like, it's hard to find a physical copy of that movie anymore. Like, it's just been completely rejected. There are far worse movies than this. But again, this is the problem with being a horror movie nerd. Like, I like the original property and I like the director, so I got excited about the movie.
Yeah, and I can see, I mean, there is, like I said, there's a lot of hate for it, and most of that hate comes from people who have a love for Black Christmas, the original, and what it stood for and what it did.
Yeah.
And really the groundwork it laid for Halloween and for, I mean, a lot of people look at Halloween as being Black Christmas Part 2.
Yeah. Well, it definitely capitalized. Halloween definitely capitalized on a lot of things that Black Christmas started. That is for sure true. But when Black Christmas, the original, ended, I found it genuinely chilling. The body is still up in the attic, undiscovered, and the phone is ringing. The killer has not been caught. Things are not okay, and credits roll. And when credits roll at the end of the remake for Black Christmas, I just shook my head and thought, that was crazy. That was crazy.
What the fuck was that? Give me another drink.
So, it was different. It's different. I'll give you that. Good enough? Right, midnight movie. Well, you and I love midnight movies. This is the only film directed to this point by Jack Nesset. He does a lot of TV. He works camera for a lot of TV shows. He's obviously a horror movie fan, and this is obviously a very low budget and tangibly, I guess, amateurish in its execution at times. It's not quite to the level of Zombie Town, that movie that you and I reviewed years ago. Where it's like so rough around the edges that you have to like hold your nose while you watch it. But it's getting close to that level. It's very obviously low budget. It's very obviously direct to video. I think this is a movie for horror fans specifically, and it's a horror movie that I think you have to meet it halfway. If you're willing to meet the movie halfway, I think you can have fun with it. It is certainly high concept, and I think that it's not without its interesting ideas. There's been plenty of horror movies about cursed films. I recently talked about this movie Antrim. There's The Hills Run Red, and John Carpenter made a short film for Masters of Horrors about a film of an angel being butchered that will curse anybody who sees it. So it's not necessarily a new idea, but I love the idea of like, once the movie is rolling, the killer can come and get anybody who's watching the movie. And until the movie is finished, there's nothing you can do about it. These people come to a theater late at night, watch a midnight showing of this infamous early 70s horror movie, and once the camera starts rolling, they can't leave the building. They're stuck in there. No one can rescue them, and they have to deal with this killer. And while the movie's rolling, while we're watching this movie, or in the world of the movie, while they're watching the movie, they have to fight this killer and there's just nothing to do it. But they're on a clock. Can they survive 90 minutes? Much like, can we endure this 90 minutes? And that, as a concept, I think is interesting. Execution's pretty wonky, but as a concept, I think that's interesting. The movie hurts in its acting and in, I think, the actual presentation of the film itself. I think we spend a little bit too much time watching the old retro movie and them sort of trying to have fun stylistically. And it's cool for the director. He has 2 casts that he gets to work with. But I'm much more interested in what's going on in the theater than anything that's going on the screen. And I want to get to the kills. And when the kills happen, there's some fun to be had with the movie. But it's obviously amateur. So if you're willing to meet it halfway and have fun with it, you will. If you want to lean back in your chair and laugh and make fun of it, you can probably do that too. But I have so much more love for a movie that has a minimal budget and a high concept that tries and fails than a movie that felt sort of as by the numbers and kind of empty as, like, well, urban legend, you know? I appreciate what they're going for here. I love what the movie wants to be, while acknowledging that it's not successful completely at being it. So, a very conditional thumbs up for me on this movie.
Well, this one for me was a pleasant surprise. This was the first time I've actually watched a midnight movie.
Okay.
It's one that I had picked up from a video store, I think, going out of business one day. I probably paid $2 for it. And
just never got around to it.
Since. And it just was never one that said, hey, today's that day, I should watch. It was never one that jumped to the front. So, and that's kind of why I'm glad this popped up on this list. It made me, all right, I'm going to finally watch this movie. Almost forgot I had it. And the front cover, it says The New Face of Horror, and it's got a picture of this slasher killer. And I'm left at the end thinking, I kind of wish this would have became almost a mini franchise, because the idea, as you said, is there. And as you watch the movie, you kind of figure out the rules of it, where he can't just, pop in and out of the movie and kill the theater goers. He has to sense their fear. And it works, because in the movie, if you rewatch scenes, you see someone's getting scared, and then the camera frame kind of flickers. It shows his face close up, and then it disappears, and it shows the point of view in the theater. And then when they're not scared, he has to go back into the screen, or after he kills someone, he goes back in the screen. So it is really a neat concept, and that part works. When the movie started, though, I kind of thought, I might have to kind of help this movie along for a little bit, because the acting was a little off. And I found the lead actress, I found her to be quite good. I've never seen her in anything else before. Rebecca, I'm looking at IMDb, Rebecca Brandes, I think it is. But
she looked familiar to me, but I don't recognize any of her credits, but she does look familiar somehow.
Yeah, and I think for whatever reason, in the theater, her co-workers maybe weren't the strongest actors.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, well, I had that feeling where I feel I might be kind of fighting against it a bit, but I'm going to, ride it and give it a chance. As we got further into the film, and as the gore picked up, and as her co-workers died, I found the level got a lot better, and I was right on board with it. I was no longer, trying to help it along. Some of the actors were better than others, but I didn't have a problem with any of them. I think the worst ones maybe were her co-workers, and they were dispatched fairly quick. So, one thing I did like about it, I didn't mind the movie within a movie either. Maybe it showed it more than they had to, but it kind of got us into that whole, I guess, the mindset of that old movie and how this is going to work. But as they were watching the movie, 2 people have died on the screen that they've been watching. It's an old black and white movie.
Yeah.
And one of the characters, after the kill, he said the same thing I was thinking, because there was not a lot of blood in that kill. And the character, after watching the movie, sounded disappointed and said, that's lame. That's not even that much blood.
Yeah.
Buddy watched the movie said, dude, it's only the second kill. It's going to get better. Just wait. And that's exactly what I thought when I saw that kill. I thought, this is kind of lame. I thought that should have been a bigger kill. But I thought, just wait. It's going to get better.
And it does.
And it did. And the killer has an interesting weapon. His signature weapon is homemade, sharpened...
Drill bit?
Not a... Yeah, it's like a cone-shaped metal thing that he just stabs people with and turns it into their torso, their face, or whatever. And as he pulls it out, it's sharp on both sides, pulls out chunks of meat. It's unique and it's pretty delicious at times. If a killer's going to use the same weapon for all his kills, you may as well make it an interesting one.
Well, and they're trying that.
Them sharpening it.
He has a signature weapon. He has a very distinct look to him. Like, they're really going for this, like, horror sort of mainstay here that they're trying to create. And I think if he, given the opportunity to make a more polished sequel and further develop it, who knows where it could have gone. But it's rickety. It's undeniably rickety. But I'm affectionate towards it. It also has the problem of the cute little kid. I talked about this earlier with the the FUNHOUSE. Whenever the kid's on screen, the level of tension goes down. I don't want to be mean to young actors. I don't think he's awful, but I don't think he's amazing either. I think he's to the task. There's a couple, a biker and his girlfriend, who they get a lot more screen time and they're attempting a little bit more characters. And I think that, again, with more time and more finesse, something interesting is almost happening there, But the stuff that works for me is they're trying to leave and suddenly the window slams down on this chick's hand and it's stuck, like she is pinned there. And a guy gets attacked directly behind her, and because she can't move, she quickly becomes the next victim as it goes right through him and into her. And that whole setup, that whole sequence, like, it worked within the world of the movie, and it made you think, like, what else can this guy do? Like, is there a way out for these people? And they try, like, I thought, well, destroy the camera, and they try that, but it doesn't work. The camera just corrects itself. They have to survive the length of the movie. In a weird way, it puts the characters in the same position of the audience, in that they have to survive the movie with us. We all got to make it to the end together. And I do think that is interesting, and I would love to have seen it developed more. There's been plenty of great horror movies that have been made this way, where somebody makes an independent movie that's high concept but low budget, and the studio says, that's really good. You know what? Do it again with a bigger budget and a better cast, and here's a bunch of money. And I, in a weird way, feel like that's what this movie needed. The studio, it made enough money on video that they let him release a director's cut or a special cut of it. So it actually got 2-tier releasing on video, and it made its money back. So it's kind of disappointing that he's never done any more with it. Like I said, it's so full of potential. I don't want to oversell it because of its amateurish qualities, which is undeniable, but I don't want to be mean to it. This is his book of trespasses, and it deserves an audience, and it's slowly, 15 years later, kind of getting one. But who knows, what could have been.
I was not aware of of a director's cut, but this movie is quite gory, so I'd be interested in seeing a director's cut myself.
Yeah. There's 2 editions of the movie, anyway. One just has the mask on the screen, and this one, which has the whole guy, I believe is the director's cut. So
that's what I got.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
So I think we both have the same
There I
version.
have it.
Anyway, it's for connoisseurs, right?
Yeah, and you can't. You want to be on their side because they've got an idea, they've got a unique weapon, a unique killer, and rules to the movie. Whereas something like Wrong Turn 3 that we talked about, their whole idea is, okay, we're gonna have a bunch of people, they're walking in the woods, and we're gonna kill them all.
Yeah.
This had something to it. And,
imagination,
yeah,
ideas.
You're right. It'd be interesting to see a more polished version, maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'd want to see a more polished version. I kind of like it's a little bit seedy, and I found maybe the first 15 minutes rough, but I thought just if you stick with it, maybe just get used to it or something. You just get caught into, okay, this is the beat of the movie. Now I'm in in rhythm, it's okay for me now.
Yeah, and there's
Maybe that's why it worked.
plenty of horror movie debuts that are rough around the edges. Rewatch the first 20 minutes of Hatchet. Like, before Hatchet really starts to cook, it's kind of rickety. It's charming. It's got its own sort of rugged charm, much like this movie does. But unfortunately, this movie never pays off as completely as Hatchet does in its third act. But I see talent here. I love what the movie wants to be. So that's the basis with which I'm recommending it. But I don't think it's for just everybody. It's for people like you and I. It's for fans of slasher movies. Fans who can see what they're going for and can get off on the imagination of it. I think you'll have... It's easily acquired for like under $5. You'll get your money's worth.
And I think especially for the time where you can kind of forget some more amateur acting.
Yeah.
Some people are harder on it than others, and I can forgive that. It's like, okay, well, it's fine. Give me something else, or do your best, and let's see where we can go with it, and stick with it. And I don't know. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I really did. I thought, well, this will just be another. So I didn't know anything about it, but
well, I wasn't fighting it.
Even
that's the key.
Even the ending scene with me, I even found it to be kind of a creepy thing on itself, where it looks like our final act killed, and what happens? We find out you end up entering this room in the movie where everybody that's ever been killed by him exists, and they're dead, but yet they're alive. They've got their wounds and their injuries, but they're there to suffer forever, it looks like. And I found that just another level of creepiness to it.
Yeah.
And I was already on board with it, and I really dug where it was going.
They could do a sequel whenever they wanted to, by the way. Someone finds a weird print of this movie, or worse, someone decides, hey, what's this movie? Let's stream it on Netflix. And then anybody who's watching the movie on Netflix is up for grabs. Like, there's serious potential. It's like a better realization of like this old Wes Craven movie, Shocker, which was, a nice try, Wes, but not completely working for me. There's something here. So if you're a fan of the genre, give it a look.
I think the problem is, it's just past now. The time for sequel is probably gone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Big enough to me have that following. But it could have been more, I think.
That was 6 middle-of-the-road slasher movies reviewed and about to be ranked by Larry Parsons and my brother, Mr. Scott Lehman. Thank you for doing this. It wasn't such a tough list after all. I mean, it definitely had its peaks and valleys, but I did have fun with it, more or less. So.
Yeah, me too. I didn't. I had a good time doing it, yeah.
Yeah, me too, I guess. Don't oversell it or anything.
no, I did. And I liked the difference. And, when we did this before, it was 6 of the more famous slasher films, and now we're, like you said, 6 other slashers.
Yes.
But, I guess if we're doing the rank, I'm going to go out on a limb and say we're not going to go 6 for 6, but I know because one of the movies was Wrong Turn 3, we're not going to go 0 for 6.
There you go.
Because that's where my rank starts, down at the bottom with Wrong Turn 3. I felt like it's just easily the least interesting of the 6 movies, and I'm not trying to be mean. Like I said to you off camera or off mic, there will be a time when I watch Wrong Turn 3 again, because sometimes I just feel I don't deserve a good movie. Some nights I'm like, you know what, I'm going to watch a not very good movie that I'm not a huge fan of. So that's me. That's my problem, I guess.
I had a friend who said she would always do her taxes while the Oscars were playing, because she wasn't that interested in the Oscars, but she wasn't that interested in taxes, but somewhere between the two she could get it both done. It's background noise. Wrong Turn 3 is background noise.
Yeah. So number 5, I felt like I was surprised before I watched it that it would end up that low, but for number 5 I'm putting Urban Legend.
Okay.
I don't mind the movie. I don't want to come across too high. I don't mind the movie. There's a time and place for it. I just don't get that excited by it.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. And as I said in the review for that, I just feel like, Larry, is there a memorable kill from that movie? And in a slasher, there should be a memorable kill. And the movie that gets ranked above it in, number 4, is known for its memorable kills. And that's where I'm going to put Happy Birthday to Me.
Okay.
I think it's a good movie, and you hit the nail on the head. It's kind of weird, and it's strange, and there's scenes that really don't need to be there, but when it's all said and done, it's kind of interesting too, and it's got its own little style to it, and it's not a bad little flick.
I agree.
And the one that definitely probably doesn't belong this high, but because it's a guilty pleasure, and you know me, I've got a fondness for those movies that that I'm not supposed to like, but I like way more than I'm supposed to. Black Xmas gets up from 2006. That gets up in 3rd place. And I'm sorry, everybody that is listening that hates me now and no longer respects my opinion. I just have a hell of a good time watching that Black Christmas movie. I don't know why. It's as I said, it's not as good as Black Christmas,
right?
But I feel it's definitely kind of a fun time. This is kind of a surprise how the top 2 are rounded out for me, because in 2nd place I'm going to put Tobe Hooper's The Funhouse.
Okay.
And I really do kind of like The Funhouse. As I said before, it becomes a horror movie in 50 minutes in, but it becomes kind of it's a strange, creepy sort of movie before that even. I endorse The Funhouse. I think it's worth checking out. I think if you're into horror movies, yeah, for sure, check out The Funhouse. I'm a fan of The Funhouse. That one I really wanted to put number 1, actually.
Okay.
But for some reason, the way Midnight Movie surprised me and the high concept idea it had, I really enjoyed Midnight Movie. I'm sure it sounds like more than you did.
Right.
But I'm putting that at number 1 just because of, as I said, you had to work with it a little bit. And I saw what they were trying to do, and they did their best, and I got impressed with it, because after the blood started coming, it came pretty hard.
Yeah.
And excuse that phrase, that didn't sound right.
Well, I was at risk
I'm
of
putting Midnight Movie number 1, whereas I really thought Funhouse was going to take that spot. But
right.
Midnight Movie knocked it out of the park for me. It just really entertained me, and I didn't see that coming.
I was a little bit hard on it when I referred to it as amateurish at times. I just didn't know what the right word for it to use. But I think you liked it more than me. But our lists are closer than I expected in a little way. And the good news is that we agreed on the spot that I was the most passionate about. I don't think we agreed on any spot except for the last one. But I think I would have been a little bit disappointed with you if you'd have ranked Wrong Turn 3 anywhere but last place in this list of movies. It's got its pluses and minuses, but there is nothing interesting or elevated, or there's nothing that makes it stands out to me in this crowd even a little bit. And I described this whole list as middle of the road slasher movies. So even in that sort of company, it does nothing to sort of distinguish itself. So I think it deserves 3rd place. And again, low budget horror movie.
Sixth place, I mean.
Or last place, what did I say? Yeah, sixth place. And notes to low budget horror filmmakers everywhere. If your CGI is that bad, just don't use it. That's my advice to you. If it looks that bad to your own eye, do not use it.
I would rather see an off-screen kill.
Yeah.
If you can't do it, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Just show us the aftermath or something. It's an easy workaround, and what you don't see sometimes is better. Anyways, flash of the blade, pan away, and then pan back to it.
Yeah. So yeah, we're on the same page with Wrong Turn 3, and I think we're on the same page with Urban Legend, because I put Urban Legend in 5th place. Not because it's terrible, but because it's kind of flavorless to me. It's just sort of, it is what the state of 90s horror movies were in 1998. Like, there were lots of them, but there were no scares to be had. They were just, they were too cool to be scary. And this is very emblematic of that. But if you want to see a movie of that time, and if you're into that the way Scott and I are into 80s movies, you might have a blast with this. So it's hard to say where your feels are for nostalgia. But for me, it just sort of felt kind of ho-hum. So it made 5th place.
I think if you said it's almost a poster child, you're right. 90s, late 90s movies especially, watch that, and that gives you a good idea about what they were about.
Yeah.
There was one thing I forgot to point out with that movie is the amount of jump scares that weren't scares. They were just somebody putting their hand on their shoulder from behind.
Yeah,
and then
false
the music
scare.
swells and they turn around, oh, it's you. But it's never a scare worth being scared for. And I think it happened 5 times through the movie. Just someone's hand on the shoulder, they turn, who is it? Oh, it's you.
Well, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. When you are, especially if you take a long time to set up a false scare for a cat to jump out of a closet or something, you're spinning your wheels. You're not telling any story. You're not moving anything forward. Everything stops for a lie. So I'm not a big fan of those. Not that you can't have false scares, but you certainly shouldn't have half a dozen of them in one movie. I'm going to hurt your feelings now, and I'm going to put Black Xmas in 4th place.
That excites me that it's that high.
There you go. It's bonkers, and I love how bonkers it is, but the movie that it's remaking wasn't bonkers. It was very composed and considered and creepy. It's like the opposite of the movie that it was remaking. I couldn't even say it was a tribute to Black Christmas. It's an in-name only sequel to Black Christmas, really. But if you want to watch a completely bonkers, way too dark Christmas-themed horror movie, this is definitely that. And sometimes I am in the mood for something completely crazy. And, this is it, So, I get where the appeal lies. But I also get, and I'm kind of on side with the contingent of horror fans who feel like, if you're going to remake a horror classic, take it seriously. That's me.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's me. That's the Star Trek fan in me, right? That's the nerdiest nerd part of my nerddom. But, okay. So we're going to start to disagree now. All the way in 3rd place is where I put The Midnight Movie. I was really waffling on Midnight Movie and Happy Birthday to Me. But Happy Birthday to Me, although inadvertently, made me laugh out loud and made me kind of smile more. I feel like the horror, or specifically the slasher genre in 1981 was trying to figure out what it was. And when they were making Midnight Movie, they knew what slasher movies were. The template was well there. In Happy Birthday to Me's effort to try and feel itself out, it takes some awkward, puberty-laden first steps that are kind of hilarious to me to watch. But it is too long. But I put Midnight Movie in 3rd place and Happy Birthday to Me in 2nd place. But anywhere on the list, those two are the tough one. They could switch places really easily for me. But I think for me, number 1 had to be the Funhouse, because I think it worked on both aspects for me. It was frightening, and it delivered the slasher kills. And on balance, I think it did it the best of these 6 movies. I had the least amount of like technical criticisms, and even if I thought the first half was slow, I understood it was deliberately slow. It wasn't meanderingly slow like Happy Birthday, right? Like this was letting the atmosphere get to you, so by the time the scares come, you are already at the edge of your seat. So I've talked shit about Tobe Hooper in the past. I am not going to talk shit about the Funhouse. I think out of this list of movies, it's probably going to have the broadest reach as far as, yeah, that worked for me. So that's why it's number one.
Yeah. Well, that's a decent list. I can endorse that for sure. As I said, I was kind of I was leaning towards Funhouse at number one, but I thought, I wanted to give a little extra praise to something that maybe tried hard, and maybe didn't get seen as much. But yeah, you know what? Other than number 6, I had a tough time because there wasn't a lot separating the other ones. Every movie I think had some points for it that maybe could have put it above one of the others, or something that was. But in the end, that's where I stuck him, and that's where you stuck him, and we'll stay friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm all over you putting Midnight Movie at number 1, because I think of the list of movies, it's probably the most unsung. Even Happy Birthday to me, everybody knows that cover, right? With the guy screaming in the shish kebab or whatever. But like, I think that Midnight Movie is something that people might have missed. And if you're into this type of movie, you probably should not have missed it. Check it out.
Yeah, it's kind of fun when you find something that you missed and say, I did not see this before. What's this about? And it's every now and then I'll stumble upon an 80s movie I've never seen. And that really excites me. Yep. I've never seen this. What is this? But
and it sat on your wall probably for a couple of years before you got around to it. There, it was just waiting for the right day. Number 1. All right, sweet. Well, we're going to do something unprecedented. We haven't, well, not unprecedented, but we haven't done it for years on the show. Scott and I are going to do some Jerry's. Dun, dun, dun. So Scott and I are going to try and do some dares. We're going to do it a little bit differently, I guess, than the days of old. If you go back to, like, I don't know, the last time we did this was like episode 18 or something. It's like, it's been a good long time. Anyway, best kill. And, like, there's certainly a lot of kills to choose from in this particular selection. From the unsubtle eye-pulling that we get out in the Black Christmas franchise to, like, the almost unworthy of mentioning any of them in urban legends. Like, there's not a lot of real visceral on-screen kills in that one. But I definitely came to my choice. I don't know if it's the most obvious one, but for me, I gave points for originality and brutality. But I'm curious where you went with best kill.
Yeah, you know what? I kind of think those are the same criteria: originality, brutality, on-screen effectiveness, and maybe something that makes you go ooh a little bit. Some of them that popped to my head were Midnight Movie, the 2-for-1 kill,
right?
Where he pushes that screw through the one guy's chest, keeps pushing, and then it goes through the girl that's lying behind him, who's got the skin of her fingers pulled off. I thought about that one. I thought about the first kill in Wrong Turn 3 we touched on.
Oh, that's right. That's a not bad one, actually.
With a nudity kill in that. But the one that I guess I would give my winner to would be the weightlifting kill in Happy Birthday to Me, because that one I felt it a little bit.
Yeah. And that's exactly the one that I picked. You'd think, like, Happy Birthday to Me is famous for the shish kebab kill, and I do like the motorbike kill, but I've never seen that. Like, I've seen kills in weight rooms before. It's more for something like in a prison drama or something like that they would do it. But it's drawn out. Like, he's struggling, and then it's it's kind of personal. He dropped the weight right on his nuts as he's struggling to hold the bar, and everything falls. And it's all about sound effects and editing. Like you said when we reviewed it, you don't see anything brutal, but you feel brutalized by the scene. So, all right, we have an agreement on best kill. But do we have an agreement on best what the fuck moment? And this one we have so much to choose from. Like Black Christmas in its entirety. There certainly is no shortage of craziness. Like, well, we just talked about Happy Birthday to Me. The all carnival stuff that's going on with the monstrosities in the Funhouse. And again, what do you count as a what the fuck moment? Is like, what is it doing in the movie? Or is it just a moment in the movie that makes your jaw go, oh my god? They try that a lot in the Wrong Turn movies, where someone's in mid-sentence and an arrow goes into their face or something like that. But I don't know how successful it is. But for me, it's something that actually puts an all stop on the movie for me for a second. Like, did that just happen? That's what I'm looking for in what the fuck.
Yeah, that's how I look at it too, where it's what? Yeah, you take pause for a minute saying, why, what? Why are we, okay, that just happened. For example, Andrea Martin's death in Black Christmas, we talked about that one being a very likely mention for that award with, she wasn't killed by the killer, she was killed by accident by an icicle, and you'll never look at icicles the same when you leave your house, you better tiptoe, but not quite. But the winner, what the fuck moment for me was the Scooby-Doo reveal of the killer's face in Happy Birthday to Me. They get another win because the way she just reaches up and then pulls off what looks like a nylon stocking from her face, and that was the perfect makeup. Yeah, that was definitely what the actual fuck when I watched that.
Well, I have two kind of honorable mentions. One of them you already talked about was Andrea Martin. It's so quick that it doesn't stop the movie, but it has no business being there. They even take the time to set it up. They show us that icicle wobble a few times earlier in the sequence, but like that is not. It's just such an absurd payoff, and like you can only laugh at that. You can only laugh at that, right? So yes, and you're right, the climactic sequence of Happy Birthday to Me is strange, but I wanted to mention the scene where the doctor shows up at the house and he sees the catatonic woman in the rain, really out of nowhere. It's just like, what happened to her? Why is she there? Are you going to try to explain it? Did he just leave her there? No, it's completely inexplicable. But I ended up going with the origin story in Black Christmas. The whole business with Billy killing his stepfather and then fathering his own sister with his mom on Christmas. It's just so needlessly over the top. Holy shit, you guys. Like, seriously? Like slow clap. Like, you really fucking went there. But, like, wow. So, just to describe it, it's insane. So, yes, Billy and Agnes's origin in Black Christmas was my choice for what the fuck. Because, really.
Yeah, and it only happened because her husband passed out drunk when they were doing it on the stairs, and she wasn't finished, and she heard Billy upstairs in that rocking chair. She goes and drops her gown, and the rocking chair starts rocking again.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that, you guys. All right. We had 6 movies, but we had more than 6 killers. I'm thinking we might agree on this one as well, but I'm curious. We have, of course, the Carney family in the Funhouse. We have the secret half-sister in Happy Birthday to Me. We have the fucked up family in Black Christmas. We have, what was the name of Gayheart?
Rebecca Gayheart.
Yeah, Amanda Gayheart from Urban Legends. We have the supernatural killer. The rules of that universe were still being figured out for Midnight Movie, but I definitely like the look of them. Like, we had a lot of interesting range to our killers, but you put Midnight Movie at number 1, so I'm thinking maybe that'll be your choice, but I'm curious. What's your favorite killer out of this group?
Yeah, looking at it, you're right. There was a lot of range, and I mean, two of our killers in these movies were, small frame females.
Yep.
And so I can't give them the nod because they don't have that imposing kind of fear that would instill. I mean, I think Rebecca Gerhardt looked like if she was swinging an axe around, it might tip her over. But I mean, her skin looked flawless. But I'd like to give it to the Carney who's in the Funhouse, because that creature is quite a memorable look. But I'm going to give the best killer to our monster or I guess our slasher in Midnight Movie, because he's got special rules around him, and he seems to be more of that unstoppable beast, I guess, because you have to play by his rules, and he can escape back into the screen, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And so I think he's got the win for me on that one.
Okay. Well, we didn't quite, but I chose the creature from the Funhouse, but I do have a very specific memory of seeing that movie on TV. I think they aired it on A&E, like on a Sunday afternoon, and I was watching it at home, and the reveal when that Frankenstein mask came off and that creature was underneath it, I was strangely not prepared for it. And it's the one thing I didn't remember a lot about the movie, but that creature, that guy always stuck with me, and it was one of the things that I enjoyed most about revisiting the movie. So I think he would have to be my favorite, but I'm utterly sympathetic to your selection as well. I do like that, and I like this created world that there seems like there could be so much more there. So solid choice, and successful Jerry's.
I like that scene when he does pull the mask off, and just because he's wailing away and banging on the cage and screaming and drooling, the drool that this guy does to you, it is something that kind of, you're right, it's memorable and brings me back to my youth too, thinking about that the first time.
It's good stuff. And those were the Jerry's. I think, especially if I have slasher as like a subject for an episode, I want to do the Jerry's, because I don't know, it's fun for me. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you doing another slasher episode, and you've already lined up your next episode with me, so I'm excited about that. Is there anything you'd like to say to the people on the internets before I shut down this episode of Rank and Review?
No, it was hi people of the internet.
Hello, people.
That's nice. I'm good too. That's about all.
You'll be hearing more from Scott soon.
Thanks.
Well, sadly, we found our way to the end of Rank and Review 211. Big thanks, big love to my brother, Mr. Scott Lehman, for coming back to the show. Always a pleasure to have him on board. And please send feedback, ranknreview@gmail.com. That's ranknreview@gmail.com. Please check out the website at ranknreview.ca. Please check out my other friendly podcasts. They're not my podcast, but check out the other podcasts local to me, the Shelf Shedding Movie Show and the Terror Table podcast. And please keep listening to Rank and Review. This is your host and random Canadian Larry Parsons. Thank you so much for listening.